From supermodel to street evangelist with a magical America's Got Talent superstar for a husband, you are in for a treat today, my friends, with our special guest. Stay tuned to hear more about Kari Tavella. What superhero do you relate to most? I'm so curious. Why? Each of us has our own innate nuclear power. It's God-given. And yet we're all out here wondering, searching, forgetting, and suppressing. I know I was. It's okay. No judgments here. But I am going to get real. As a life and career coach, it's kind of my job. And you chose the show, so no one is forcing you. But the force is real. And the question I really want to ask is, what's your superpower? I'm Sharon Davenport. I've been called a real-life Wonder Woman. This show is designed to activate you alongside other superheroes. It's time that you arise, put your cape on, and fly. Kari Tavella, the wife of America's Got Talent winner Dustin Tavella, had quite a successful run in the entertainment industry as a model and an actress. Kari has been featured on billboards and magazines and television shows, commercials, and movies. Amidst her success, she hit rock bottom with drugs and alcohol, and in 2015 decided to walk away from it all. She knew pursuing a radical relationship with Jesus was more important than her career, especially if it meant losing herself in the process. Kari is passionate about sharing her story and desires to captivate people in a way that will help them to avoid the destructive path she found herself on. Her mission in life is to nurture, protect, and restore God's design to broken people through her extreme transparency. Welcome, Kari. So excited to have you here today.
Thank you so much. I'm so stoked to be here. It's so awesome meeting you.
Me too. We recently met at the Grow Your Business for God's Sake conference, and just hearing Kari before she ever went up on stage and talked, just getting to know her kind of behind the scenes is just like, holy cow, man, everybody needs to hear your story, Kari. So I'm excited. So, but before we get into the story piece, one thing that I always ask all of our guests on here is, who is your favorite superhero and why? And this could be like across the board.
I know it sounds silly, but it would be Jesus.
No, that's great.
It's so funny because I have 3 and 4-year-old boys, and they're obsessed with everything superhero, Spider-Man, all of them. But I have a little action figure, and I'm always telling them, like, this is the greatest of all time. He's the real superhero.
You have a Jesus action figure?
Yeah, I do.
That's awesome. I love it. You're not the only one, because people have used, other biblical heroes as their superheroes. So when
that's cool.
I love it. So fun. And I love that you play with Jesus along with Spider-Man.
I do. I gotta remind them, like, he's the real one. Okay, he's
right.
The real superhero.
There you go. Absolutely. Yeah. So then next, what would you say is your unique superpower, and how do you use it in your day-to-day? I want to make you think on this one.
I feel like mine would definitely be vulnerability. I love going first and just like kind of paving the way for other people to just feel safe enough to share something for the first time. I love just, the vulnerability that really takes the shame off of people and helps them to just be free of stuff they've been, hiding or holding in for sometimes their whole lives. That's absolute favorite thing.
I love that. And what a gift that you're out there helping people to walk that out and going first so that they see, hey, you can do this too, and you can walk out of this lifestyle. So kind of on that same vein, you're obviously gorgeous for those that are watching, and you were a supermodel and then transformed by the Holy Spirit. So please share some of your story with our friends listening.
Yeah, so I'm from Ohio, super small town in Ohio, and I was just like on a really bad path, and I didn't grow up Christian. I was Catholic, so we went to church like, once a year on Christmas.
Gotcha.
And yeah, I mean, from a young age though, like when I was really young, I was just super bold, so fearless. I loved like all boy things, really. I was a tomboy. I played all the sports. I just loved the adventure. And then I got involved with the wrong friends. I'm really passionate about choosing friends wisely, and I didn't, take that advice from my parents. And so one of my best friends, she really, her mom kind of let us do whatever we wanted. And so that's where I started drinking and just getting in trouble, even with boys. And also my parents divorced when I was little, so I think that played a huge part in me just wanting a male figure who's really supposed to be your protector, and the father gives you away when you're married. I didn't have that, and so I know now I was really searching for someone to just like love me. And so I had a friend who could have all the parties at her house. And then when I started drinking like when I was 13, and I'm from a small town where there's not a lot to do, so that's just kind of what people do. And I was on my way. This is kind of when everything shifted. I was really confident, secure kid. And then I was drinking on the way to a basketball game. And then on the way home, I was very drunk. And 3 of my closest guy friends molested me. So that was like just really thrust me deeper into partying. And I really became that girl that I never wanted to be. I would just drink to have fun and be secure. But then I would make really bad choices when I was drinking. And so I was in that vicious cycle, very, very insecure, always thought everyone was talking about me. And then I did have a grandmother praying for me, though. And I know she knows I had the wrong friends. I was pursuing all the wrong things. And she could see. And my mom was a 2-sport All-American athlete. She was an All-American in volleyball and basketball. So I really didn't have a chance. Like I was just pushed into sports from like age 4, and I loved it. And it was something that I was naturally good at, but I had offers coming into play at like bigger D1 schools. And there was one little school in Tennessee that I didn't have any desire to go to. But I just went to just make the coach happy because he kept bugging me about it. And I go there and I meet the volleyball team. They take me to a party on my visit, and I got drunk, saw a bunch of cute boys, and I was like, oh yeah, sure, this school sounds good. So I ended up
little did you know.
It's so funny though, because my grandma was praying for me. Like God has such a funny sense of humor. I signed 4 years at a Christian college in a county that was dry, that didn't sell alcohol.
That you went to a party at and decided to go to. Whoa.
Yeah, so it was just so funny. Like that's where I met my volleyball coach, who was a powerhouse. She was such a godly woman. She was really a mom to me, and I didn't like it. I was just like, why all the rules? I didn't understand why I had to go to mandatory Bible studies and feature Christian athletes and chapels. And I was with the other athletes with my headphones in, like, this is so dumb. Like, why am I here? I don't get the whole Jesus thing. So I was really running. I mean, even in college, I was still just same cycle with drinking and boys and searching. And then after college, I moved to New York for 3 months. My brother was living there. And that's when I really got involved in like the party scene and clubs. And my first friends there were club promoters. So that's where stuff like really kind of went south for me.
Sure.
And then, so I always say I started working. I just didn't value myself at all. And if I always say if the restaurant Hooters had like a rebellious stepdaughter, that would be the restaurant I was working at. It was really
wow. That's great.
I was working like in a bikini at a restaurant on in Times Square, and so a bunch of like Wall Street businessmen would come here. And I was a mess. And my boss, who was like twice my age, was always hitting on me, always inviting me to dinner. And so one night I ended up going to dinner with him, and like we had 2 bottles of wine, and I don't remember anything after that. Like I actually woke up naked in a penthouse the next day. I didn't even know where I was or how I got there. Wow. And that was like the first time that ever had happened to me. And so I just was like, these were the situations I would put myself in and the choices that I was making. And I ended up moving to LA with my brother. And my first month in LA, I had my greatest accomplishment of my career, which I signed with LA Models, which was one of the biggest agencies there at the time. And everyone on my Facebook was cheering me on. Everyone back home, thought it was so amazing. I ended up getting in every, I had an ad for Hawaiian Tropic suntan lotion, and it went in every major magazine. It was in Cosmo and Glamour and Vogue, and all these
wow.
Literally every magazine. So people were cheering me on. But then shortly after that, from my highest high, I just kept living that lifestyle. I thought I could make any choice I wanted and no consequences would catch up to me. Nothing bad ever really happened to me until it did. I went from the greatest accomplishment of my life, everyone was cheering for me, to finding myself in a clinic in North Hollywood, and I had tested positive for herpes. And so my whole world was just shattered. I was suicidal after that. That pushed me even deeper into alcohol, and just trying to I was in denial even about it. I was just oh my gosh, I'm disgusting. No one's ever gonna love me. I'm never getting married. I'll never have children. I just felt so gross. And so yeah, after I'd signed with that agency, I was just I don't know. I was just deeper and deeper in that whole scene. I did that for 7 years, and I ended up meeting a guy in Vegas. I went out to a pool party there for People magazine, and met a guy there, and he proposed to me. And then I moved in with him, and then he made a lot of money, and he wasn't an old dude. He was only 2 years older than me.
Wow.
And he bought me everything, and we traveled all over. But it was the most empty and depressed I've ever been in my whole life. And
wow.
I was just always on something. Meeting him, that's when I started smoking weed, and I started popping pills, and I was taking ecstasy and going to Vegas every other weekend to the pools. And I always tell people, sure, there's moments of fun, but the depression and the emptiness that followed was just horrible. And literally, I was so suicidal all the time, just constantly tormented with those thoughts and just wanting to end my life. And, because it's counterfeit, it's not actual joy. It's the enemy always tempts us with these things that it's sin, and it feels good in the moment, but it's so destructive, and it all leads to just chaos.
Right.
And so I just finally had hit rock bottom with that. I was at a pub crawl in Newport Beach, threw my $50,000 engagement ring at my ex, and someone called the cops on me for screaming. I don't remember any of it. And as I was sobering up, I was just again, hating who I'd become. All the self-hatred, all the things I'd done would come spewing out when I was drunk. And I was trying to jump off the 10th floor of our balcony in Long Beach. And
wow.
And then I woke up the next day on the balcony, and my brother, who was pretty much considered himself an atheist for a long, long time, started going to church, because our very first friend in LA was a pastor of a church on Hollywood. And he invited us for 6 years, and I was always no.
Look how God has pursued you, Kari, and pursued you and pursued you every step of the way. It's so beautiful. Okay, keep going.
Yeah. So I was I committed to going to church with him. He invited me to church. I committed to getting sober, and then just started volunteering, because I was just so selfish my whole life. Everything was just about me. And it's interesting though, once I started going, I felt every week the pastor was talking to me. And
that happens.
Yeah, the first time I walked through those doors at that church, I felt this void be filled for the first time in my life. And when I started volunteering, I felt that void be filled. Oh my gosh, I was coming to life, because I was doing something for someone else and serving. And I got super plugged in at my church and was serving, meeting so many good friends, people who really cared about me. My friends in the past would leave me at a bar to go home with some guy, or I'd be paying for a $50 cab ride home,
Yeah.
It was those kind of friendships. And I was meeting people who really cared about me and wanted to know me. And when you're in the party world too, you don't even ask questions. You don't even know the people you're I didn't know anything about my friends. And so I was finding a lot of life, like just being in church. And, but my ex, who I was engaged to at the time, he was not going through what I was going through. It was like radical for me. And I had to make a lot of really hard choices. You know, I'll never forget, I'm so thankful for these youth pastors who were so bold. And that's why I think God's challenged me to be so bold and be loving. Cause I'm like, what is actually loving? Cause if I'm not telling someone the truth and love, like that's not loving to me. And so they really told me the truth. We went in for, you know, I was like feeling conviction for the first time in my life, like sleeping with him. We lived together. We're not married. We go see the youth pastors and at our church. And they were just like, you know, we're not judging you at all for how you're living, but like if you want God's best for you, like he gives us such great guidelines for marriage and, you know, all of this. And so I really believed them. And it was the first time I had seen Christ-centered love. Like I'd never witnessed Christ-centered love before. And God really spoke to me like, you want that with this guy, but it's not going to happen because he doesn't love me and he doesn't know my love. Like it's you. I really understood the power of like being equally yoked in that moment. So I had to make a lot of hard choices. And once I like officially was just done and moved on from that relationship, it was not even a week later. It was like I went to a retreat in the mountains. There was 800 people from my church there, and it was the first time I was ever in worship. And I was just like, God, you have to take these feelings because they're so real. And I know he's not the one for me, and I know that you have something else. And so you got to take these feelings away. So I was just worshiping, and I felt like the Lord just like severed every feeling I had for him. Wow. And I felt nothing, and I felt like a new person. And I went to church the next week and was just like worshiping my heart out. And that's when I met my husband, who's a worship leader.
Right. Oh, that's the God we serve.
I know. It's literally like there's a little picture. I have it on my phone. It's a picture of Jesus holding a huge teddy bear behind him. And he's saying, trust me. She's like, can't let it go and can't give up what she knows is not, you know.
Her little teddy bear, her little teddy bear, when he's got the better one behind his back, ready, brand new, ready to give. Yes, I love that picture. It's one of my favorite, and that's one that I share with people too. So there's another like connection there. Like that's one of my favorite because it's so true. Good. When we surrender, when we let go of what we think is the best for us, or we think is going to provide for us, like he was a billionaire. He literally, you were living this life and this high life. But then when you say, God, I give it all to you, I surrender it all. And then literally really quickly, he was like, all right, this is your husband.
Yeah, no, seriously. And what's so wild is like, it was everything I had prayed for. Like as I was getting to know him, he had told me he was like waiting till marriage to have sex, and he never drank or did any drugs, or like he was just so different than anyone I'd ever met. And it didn't even make sense to me, but I really realized like, oh my goodness, this is God like giving me all the desires of my heart and what I want in another person. And I really had to like, I had a point too where God was like, you need to become what you want. Like you know what I mean? Like I need to be it first. And so I don't know. It was wild just once I let go and trust him. Like he's restored so much in my life. It's unreal.
Well, and I one of the things that I wanted people to experience, and I feel like they probably have, because I was having chills as you were talking, is how, you know, how passionate you are and how you're not afraid to be bold now. And I heard you at a table as I was kind of passing by later at dinner that night, and you were just like, my deepest desire is to serve God with everything and to just go where he wants me to go, do what he wants me to do. I'm paraphrasing a little bit. But you just the passion and you could just see it with your whole being is to bring honor and glory to God from somebody who's been on the other side, who's lived that high life. And so I love that. I didn't know if you're done sharing the story, if you have more to share, you can keep going.
Oh, I was just going to say, when you talked about like having lived that, I feel like I personally don't know a lot of people, because it's hard leaving all of that, right? It's like hard to like leave Start that over. Lifestyle fully. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't know. I just know a lot of people still have like one foot in, one foot out, but I don't know. I just was like running to life. And I feel like even when I met my husband, it was like everyone was confused because he was a missionary and he had no money. Like You know what I mean? I paid off his credit card debt. like $5,000 credit. I paid it. And so it was so confusing to everyone, but I just knew like, and that's where I'm like, oh man, I feel like so many girls are just pursuing like a rich dude, but like you might pass an absolute gem that God has for you. And then you build something together. Like how cool is that? You know what I mean? Even being at where we are now, like in this mountaintop season, it was like 6 years of the valley, like believing in each other, encouraging each other when we had nothing, and really depending on the Lord for every single need financially. I mean, everything. But it was a long process.
Sure. And it's in the valley where you grow strength and where you actually get to build endurance. It's because on the mountaintop, where is there to go from there? You can see a whole lot, but it's the valley, and it's the hills and valleys before you get to the top. And so let's actually talk about your husband, Dustin. And he is an America's Got Talent winner, and he's kind of more recently come to fame and success. So how has that like shaped your life and your ministry together?
It's been so cool, but it's like it's wild because there's been a lot of stuff like that was prayed over us like 6 years ago. It's been such a wild journey watching him, like really watching God do so much in his heart too, of just like, because he's so talented. I mean, actually, he was a musician when I met him. Like I never even saw a card trick. Right. This is like recent, like doing the tricks again. He did when he was like 12, but then he stopped. I mean, really till just a couple years ago, he started doing this again. But it's been cool watching God have him in this process. Like Christine Kane always says, I actually have it pulled up here. If the light shining on you is brighter than the light shining in you, the light on you will destroy you. Like most of us don't allow God to develop us and take us through this process of refining and not making it about us. And it's so easy to want to like have a platform and go for the platform. But I've watched him pursue the one. And like, even when the pandemic started, it was like, he wasn't able to do events anymore. He had his own stage show. He wasn't able to perform, but he was so faithful with the one, and like not missing who God has right in front of us, right? Like the discipleship of like really investing into a life and doing stuff that no one's ever going to see. Like no one saw that for literally, I think it was 5 months, the apartment we lived in Virginia Beach, before Dustin got on America's Got Talent, he was doing one trick for him a day, just bringing this guy so much joy who worked in the leasing office. This guy didn't know the Lord. I was like periodically just sharing my story with him. And then Dustin every day would just do a trick for him because God was like, okay, well, you can't perform on stages, but what are you doing with your gifts now? Like, and so it was just so many things, watching him be so faithful in that. And then also just being so generous financially, even when he never had a lot. Like he taught me so much about generosity, and, it's just so cool. Like actually, a lot of people don't know this, but God has asked us to just really be radically generous, like to give more than we even have. Sometimes it's like, doesn't make sense. But right before, so we were living in Virginia Beach. This was after the pandemic started. We were living super simple. Like I was cooking every meal at home, and just, we were basically living off gig workers' unemployment because he couldn't book events, and he was working events up until that started. So we were just living very simple. Well, a friend of ours in Nashville had called us, and he was like super repentant over being in debt, and was just like, I've been buying things to try to impress people, and like falling into the pressures of like culture, what I have to have. And anyways, he was like drowning, like working 2 jobs, one at Target, could not get his head above the water, and it was like $5,000 in debt. And so it was right at the same time that the government gave out those stimulus checks for $4,000. And so Dustin and I were praying and thinking like, there's a lot we could do with the $4,000 right now. Because that was like a lot to us. We didn't have a lot. And we really felt like God put it on both of our hearts to give that to our friend. Wow. And so that was like the most we'd ever felt called to give, with like the least we ever had. And just, it wasn't even a week later. I have to look at the exact date. It was like a few days later, he booked America's Got Talent. Like he got on after that. And I feel like every time we've just been open-handed and let God just work through us financially. Like, and if it's not why we do it, but he just does. Like it's always, okay, I can trust you with more. Okay, I can trust you with more each time. But it's been a while.
So you literally have like walked out the parable of the talents that where you truly walked it out where, and it's so fun. I've talked to people about this too. I love how the story in the Bible, and if you guys listening, I don't know what it is. You can Google it, go to Dr. Google and Google the parable of the talents. And I love how talents back then was money, prices of money, but talents now is a dual meaning. We understand that in the Bible it was money, but also God has given us talents, specific gifts and talents. And so for us to be able to either one of the people, he buried his, he was given the least and he buried it. Reza took it and multiplied it, doubled it. And so that's what God desires. I mean, that's a very beautiful and very clear picture of how God says, go use the gifts and talents that I've given you. Go forth and multiply it and serve others with it. And you've literally walked it out by, oh, Lord, here's the 4K, going it over there. And then he turns around and goes, look how I bless you with it.
Totally.
Beautiful.
It's amazing. It's, and that's where I'm like, I have such a desire to see people just go all in and like go for it. And God always speaks to me through analogies, like stuff that I can relate to. And I love snowboarding. It's like my absolute favorite thing on the planet.
Fun.
It's so fun. It's such a rush. Like, it's just amazing. But when I first learned how to snowboard, I was on my heels the whole time. And if you don't actually learn how to snowboard and you just are on your heels the whole time, you don't get to experience like the fullness of snowboarding. You don't get to feel that feeling of like carving, going from heel to toe, bombing down a mountain, the rush of just like being in nature, everything's wide open and you're flying down a mountain. You don't get to feel that if you stay on your heels the whole time. And he told me, like, this is the same with Christianity. If you're a Christian and you're just staying on your heels and you're being a spectator and you're not going all in with me, you have one foot in the world and one foot with me, like, you're not going to experience the fullness of the adventure I'm calling you to. There's so much adventure, and it's the stuff that it's really about radical obedience, right? Like, just obeying him no matter what. And most of the time, it's not what I want to do. Like when he's asked me to do something, it's never what my flesh wants to do. Or, you know what I mean? That's why I have to just say no to that and obey him. And when I do, I'm like, oh my goodness, there's so much life here and so much adventure. And I feel like we're missing it. That middle place of one foot in the world, one foot out, I think is like the worst place to be, because even if you're just all in with the world, you're getting some kind of temporary satisfaction. But like, Christians who are kind of in that lukewarm, like middle place, I have such a heart for them. Like, no, go for it. Like, you have to go all in or you're just going to miss what he has and how he wants to use you.
Well, and I think you've had multiple instances in your story about showing, about very clearly demonstrating that right there, what you were talking about of you were all in over here. And then there was so much, there was no fulfillment. There was emptiness. There was pain and suffering. And then you were trying to fill it with the alcohol and the drugs and the sex. And it wasn't. And then how beautiful it is now that you are all in. And so, Kari, your story is so dynamic and so powerful. And I am so excited for everybody who's listening here. And we're going to definitely need to have you back down the road for sure. And let people hear, how things are continuing to transpire for you. And I mean, I'd love to talk sometime too, like we're running out of time here, but I'd love to talk and let people hear your story about adoption and how God has redeemed that. And with your two beautiful boys and the doors that he's opening with that as too. But before we wrap up here, like I said, we're going to have you for sure have you back. But how can people like follow and support you and your family for what you're stepping into next? I know there's some stuff on the horizon that's kind of being kept quiet, but how can people support you or follow you?
The stuff people like in January, so Dustin's next performance, which was super powerful, he went to compete on AGT All-Stars, and so that'll be airing in January. I don't know the date yet, but and then I think just through Facebook and YouTube, like I've felt more of a burden to just share even more. So like I'm going to be sharing a lot more on there, just like about our journey and the things I've learned, even just daily, like revelations, just, I don't know. I'm feeling it. I feel this urgency to just really put it out there. So, and I'll probably I think I'm going to start a TikTok too, just for like more of my story stuff. Like I have a poem testimony that I really want to post on there too.
Awesome. So you guys follow Kari Tavella on TikTok when she starts it. Now you have to go start it. You don't wait.
No, I know. I already have it. I have it. I just need to
start putting some content on there, because when people can go find. I'm sure you have by the time this comes out too. So
yeah,
people start following you. But and people, I just appreciate your transparency so much, Kari, and your heart to see people not struggle, and to get off the fence, get the lukewarm Christians off the fence, the people who say they believe but then go do the complete opposite.
right.
So thank you so very much.
No, thank you. No, it's such a blessing.
This is so good. Your light shines bright, and you're so much brighter than the light shining on you now, like as you said.
Thank you.
Definitely. Well, so friends, they're listening, for tuning in. Thank you so much for tuning into this. We'll be back with our next amazing modern day superhero in about 2 weeks. Until then, and as always, go use your unique superpower to change someone's life for the better today. All right. Bye for now, guys.
Bye. Thank you so much.
Thank you.